Hey, good morning. I'm out on the water near the site as identified by the Nisqually people's legend of Buta'u. And also on the shores, which is currently today's Fox Island. And on Fox Island, the all too true story of the internment camp during the Puget Sound Indian Wars of 1855 and 1856. Well, let's start with the legend. So I read about this legend. The author was Cecelia Carpenter in her book Tears of Interment. And it's about this princess of a Nisqually chief, Buta'u. And how they would come, Buta'u was the name of the island before it was Fox Island. So the Nisqually people called it Buta'u. And they would come here during the summertime for fishing and small game, shellfish collecting. And the princess of the chief loved to come down to the shore, walk around, just to be there with nature. And one day while she was on the shore, she came across a man, and they began to spend time with each other, walking on the shores and visiting. And she found that she was starting to fall in love with him, and that he disappeared. She was worried for him. She didn't know what happened, worried that she would never see him again. Well, after some time, he did show back up. And he had to explain that he needed to return to his village, which was just off the southern end of Buta'u. And when I mean off the end, it's off the island and out underneath the water, below the waves. And his people lived underwater. Now she wanted to be with him, and she said she would marry him and return with him to his village if she would be allowed to come back and visit her family and friends occasionally. And so she did. And she would come back and visit her friends and family. And it turns out they continued to grow old, but she did not. And as her family and friends passed away, she returned to the land less and less. But even to this day, you come out on the water and listen to the wind, for she will still be out there warning her people of impending storms. So I did a story about the Medicine Creek Treaty, and it kind of outlines the Puget Sound Indian Wars. And that's kind of quick. So if you want more detail, please check out the Medicine Creek Treaty video. But a quick recap is that the first governor, Isaac Stevens, came over here and right away wanted to set up treaties with the Indians. And it turns out Isaac had three responsibilities. One was being the governor of the territory. He was also the chief of the administrator for the Indian affairs. And he was responsible for laying out the track, the route for the Pacific Railroad. Busy man, involved in lots of things, and kind of just having a cursory insight into all that was going on. After he made the treaty with the Nisqually, Puyallup, Muckleshoot, he continued on to eastern Washington on the east side of the Cascades, all the way over to Blackfoot country. But while he was away, that's when the conflict broke out. And the Michael Simmons was in charge of the Puget Sound Indian Affairs while the governor was out of the area. And so when the hostilities broke out, he wanted to separate, quote, the friendly Indians from the warriors. And so he set up a temporary reservation here on what is now known as Fox Island. I think the most they estimated there was about maybe 1,200 people interned here on the island, and it's too small to support 1,200 people with just natural game and foraging. One of the things that kept it from being a complete disaster is that the Medicine Creek Treaty was signed and approved by Congress, so there was funding to move the Native Americans to the reservation, and they used that funding to feed the people interned on Fox Island. Now, just to give you a feel for things, like May of '86, there were about 720 people interned. That was in May. By September, the report came out that 80 of those had died and 150 new arrivals. Now, one of the most exciting times as such, or a lot of excitement came about, in January 5th, 1856, Chief Leschi came over here to the island with about 35, 40 warriors. And he came to talk to Agent John Swan. Now, John Swan was the Indian agent living on the island, overseeing the internment camp and distributing food. And Leschi really trusted John Swan. Well, word got out to Steilacoom and the surrounding white settlements that Leschi was here to recruit more warriors. And with over 700 warriors, probably more than a third, I'll say, were fighting age men. So there was a real concern that he would really reinforce his warriors and take the battle back to the white settlements. So they made a call out to Fort Steilacoom, and they made also a call to, well, see, the Hudson Bay Company, they had a steamship here. It was the SS Beaver. And so they asked to borrow the SS Beaver to transport soldiers from Fort Steilacoom over to Fox Island to address and capture Leschi. So they arrived. Captain Maloney was the piloting captain of the steamship. But they made it tactical there in that they only had one handboat on the steamship. So they could only ferry across 4 or 5 men to the island at a time, which, you know, with 30 to 40 warriors waiting for you, it's really not possible to land. So all they could do was sit and watch. Now, the whole reason that Leschi really came over, he wanted to talk to Agent Swan, was about peace and how they could redo the reservations, the placement and the size, so that they would have prairies for their horses. They had, you know, herds of horses. They needed better farming land. They needed access to fishing. Well, he was turned down, and there's kind of a standoff a little bit with the SS Beaver sitting offshore. Well, eventually, after about 36 hours, Leschi and his warriors just slipped away. The battle goes on, and eventually Leschi surrenders. Leschi is captured due to being turned in and tricked by his nephew, Cecelia. Interesting, the Governor Stevens comes back to the island in August of 1856 for what's known as the Fox Island Council. And during that council, he agrees to renegotiate the size of the reservations. He gives the Nisqually people, about 4,700 acres on both sides of the Nisqually River, just above the mouth of the Nisqually River. And the Puyallup had along the Puyallup River all the way down to Commencement Bay. In addition, he agreed to a third site on the White River, which became the Muckleshoot Reservation. So that war was all done, was so unnecessary. If he would have met with Leschi and listened to them about how the original 4,000 acres was unsuitable for all the tribes between Olympia and Seattle, this could have been avoided. In the end, I guess Governor Stevens finally, under pressure, returned and made the reservations bigger so that they could support the people. It's really a shame. Even Ezra Meeker, pioneer of the time, he said it was just so unnecessary and it hurt so many people. So this lighthouse is on the end of what is now currently Tanglewood Island. It's a very small island, purchased in 1933 by a Dr. Alfred Schultz. And then in 1947, he built this little lighthouse and made it part of a boys' camp. He used it for his office, and then there was also some room for dormitories, but it was a boys' camp and a privately built lighthouse, never used for navigational aid. It's just part of a summer camp. It's kind of cool. So Tanglewood Island, back during when the natives had named it, was great. Well, not the natives, but it was known during the pioneer days as Grave Island, because the Nisquallies practiced their tree burial practices, and so they put their honored dead in a dugout canoe and put the canoe and the body up into the pine trees. And I actually found a photo of probably the early 1900s, maybe 1920, of somebody sitting up in a tree to get their picture taken next to the canoe. And I kind of debated with myself of putting it in the video. It's historical. I don't know, I just felt a little bit disrespectful. So I put the link for the photo down in the description if you want to check it out. But leave me some comments. How would you like to see historical events that maybe not so culturally sensitive? I don't want to disrespect anybody on these videos, and yet you want to talk about history. Hey, I hope you enjoyed this paddle, talking about the Nisqually people's legend of Bata'u and the internment camp that was on Fox Island, and then even here, what was known as Grave Island, and now known as Tanglewood Island, and turned into a boys' camp during the 1940s. Hey, I really hope to see you out on the water. Take care.